So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for June 25th, 2025. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issues that were tagged for the agenda. The agenda is 1752. Although we are going to have one issue where we have some guests going to handle that first after we go through the regular sort of preamble. So before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Sure, I'll do one since I'm a guest today. JSConf tickets are for sale if you're a core maintainer. We've offered discounts to maintainers, so hit us up on the Slack channel. Also, the notifications for speakers went out Monday, so folks should be seeing those. Check your inbox if you submitted a CFP.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, if not, just a reminder to nominate people for the contributor spotlight. We're hoping to get that program off again, so if you get your nominations in, that's good. On to CPC and board meeting updates. I think Matteo was going to have trouble talking, so I don't know, Joe, if you have any updates from the CPC side.
Yeah, not too much to bring to the group. I think one thing I was looking at the last agenda that I don't know if we've mentioned here before, but the group that does the contributors covenant is working on a version 3 of that document, and members of the CPC have met with the group and provided some feedback. They should have a new version, land that new version by August 1st, and we're expecting to adopt it, assuming everything goes as planned. So I thought I'd mention that from the standpoint of the foundation, that we would be upgrading our code of conduct from the contributors covenant. And then I think I'll also just add that the board meeting is this Friday, so we'll have more from that later.
Okay. Just put that in minutes. Okay, so given that, then I think we can jump into the topic. I think Claudia, you'd asked that we chat about the topic, so I'll let you or whoever introduce it, and we can go from there.
To introduce myself, that's what you said?
No, introduce the topic, like kick off the discussion on.
If it's an ESP topic, I think it's better that Robbie introduces the topic.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely collaborative discussion, but I did prepare a few slides. So let me see if I can share. Y'all can see that. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ESP, but first give a little context on why this is important. As some of you saw a keynote I did at NodeConf that talked about magic piles of money, and how we talked about how we raise every dollar that we spend. But it's a challenge every year, so we've been looking at ways to diversify our budget. So first, I just want to kind of give you just a little update on our budget. It hasn't changed much from the Ireland event, but just give you a little context on how we see the ESP program fitting into that sort of diversified budget, what that budget goes toward to help the projects, and then just a quick high level on the ESP, and then we can kind of open it up for how this was implemented or some of the experiments that we're implementing together with you all in the Node project. Let's see if I can see this. So if you take a look at our budget, if you look at the overall expenses, we have about almost $2.9 million in expenses against a revenue of 2.6 and change. We typically always build a balanced budget, but when we built this budget, we were anticipating that we would get somewhat of a renewal from the Sovereign Tech Fund, which is now the Sovereign Tech Agency. We applied for a $200,000 grant. We didn't get it. And they were quite generous with us the year before as we sought to migrate a lot of our infrastructure over to the Linux Foundation IT team. And they just wanted to diversify their spending across new projects. So we kind of headed into the new year on what was already approved with a $200, and $13,000 loss with that. And then if you take a look at another shortfall that we're taking a look that we're experiencing, as you see, we have something called the ESP partnership bucket of $200,000. That is what we anticipated we would bring in to the foundation all up. A majority of that would go as a payout to the projects. And so we're tracking about just about a 50% shortfall in that regard. So if you take a look at our overall budget, as you can see, we do try to diversify that with grants, with our member revenue. Hopefully, we'll break even with our event JS Conf. That's a big risk this year, but that's sort of a level set on where we are with the budget. I do want to mention that in addition to our budget, we get over $2 million for free IT infrastructure services. Those partners are, very much appreciated. We have legal contracts in place with those folks, everyone from Cloudflare to DigitalOcean to Fastly to Microsoft Azure, Vercel, and others. So totally appreciate that. And we couldn't be where we are today without that, without that support. But sort of carrying on that, we do have contracts in place with all of our vendors. We consolidated a lot of our vendors and put together legal contracts. So if there's a revolving door in the open source programs office, we're not at risk of losing any critical infrastructure. With those contracts, we give co-marketing and very specific outcomes for each partner, from social media posts to blogs to logo placements and all that. And I also just wanted to kind of cover what the infrastructure services offerings are that we offer to the Node project as well as to the other projects. Again, if you saw some of the future state projects that you worked on with Vanessa and Ben and Ryan Aslett from our team last year, we worked in partnership with a lot of you. Richard Lau, thank you for a lot of your support and team, and put together a kind of a joint plan to handle all of those things on the left. Again, I had mentioned that infrastructure bucket. That's sort of a key thing that we offer, expanding it to kind of managing some of the cloud vendors was sort of, built out over the past year. So if you look at the right, you all probably know Ryan. Ryan is a full-time resource for the OpenJS Foundation, although he does spend, he says, about 80% of his time on the Node project. But we also have the Linux Foundation IT team who provides that sort of 24/7 service for you all. In addition to that, a lot of the budget goes, I say we're sort of like the product team around the developers, and we handle everything else that you might anticipate if you're building a product at an organization. So many of you have seen this slide before, but these are all of the other things that are sort of a day in the life of Robin and team on how we support our projects. Now just a quick overview on ESP. I know we had a town hall meeting on it. I had circulated a deck. I talked about this a little bit as well in some of my keynotes. We had a blog. We do have a section on our website, which was optional for us. Of course, we want, we want to give as much visibility as we can on how we do that. If you look at Sovereign Tech Fund, they actually required an entire web page for the Sovereign Tech Agency on what we were implementing for them. We have a partner page for the OpenJS Foundation. It includes links to the partners I mentioned previously on the infrastructure. It mentions our ecosystem sustainability projects, which is non-exclusive. And we're working with the board to expand another partner program as well. So stay tuned for that. But just a high level, this is an opt-in for our projects. We've had 11 projects opt in so far. I talked about outlining the requirements. This vendor in particular, Hero Devs, is offering us a 15% revenue share. Of that revenue that comes in, 10% goes to the project and 5% to the foundation. If you look at the math though, it took a lot of legal support to get this agreement in place because we are a nonprofit. So the way, that this is really important is we are supporting the general security and ecosystem for the world by doing this since the code has already been put to bed. But we are being quite cautious and we're setting aside 15% tax withholding from the overall revenue that comes through, because if we reach a certain threshold, then we will be paying taxes on that. So the money comes in, we take of that 15% revenue share that comes in from Hero Devs, we take a 15% tax set aside, and then we do the division. 10% goes to the project and 5% to the foundation. Payments are made every 6 months. I think Ben is sharing with you sort of the progress on that. Again, it's non-exclusive, and we are trying to bring in additional partners. And then I think where Claudio and the gang is here is we've been meeting with the Hero Devs team. They have data from some other projects on some practices on how to maximize traffic and revenue. And so the team has been working to sort of maximize traffic and do some experiments on the node.js blog. So that's where we are today. And I want to open it up for sort of further context of Claudio, or I know Matteo, it's difficult to talk right now where you are, but happy to open this up for discussion. Joy?
Hi. Thank you for the presentation, even though I think I probably seen most of it before. I was wondering about the specific part of ESP because that's mostly about the foundation. But as far as I've seen, I think I don't know how regularly it was shared, but like there was like a regularly shared number of like revenue from Hero Devs going into the project. Um, and then I suspect there's also like some traffic number that they're monitoring. So I was just wondering whether we can kind of make those two numbers more somewhat transparent because as I commented in the issue, is currently like we're trying to move the needle of the funding, but then it's like the needle is covered, and then the team A is being tasked to move the needle. Team B is getting notified after a very long delay about how much the needle has moved, in which direction, and they need to come to consensus to tell the other team how to do what to do next. It doesn't seem very efficient. So I'm just wondering whether we can kind of make the needle more transparent so that everyone can see, like, maybe not really in real time, but like in relatively real time, like if we do something, how much the needle is getting moved, and how much that is moving towards the goal that we want to achieve, that the position that we want to move it over there.
Okay, so I'm hearing what type of return do you want to see based on the measurement of the traffic? The Hero Devs didn't have our traffic numbers. The website team did share that, I believe, in a meeting last week. And they had talked about sort of some early kind of percentages on conversions. But I think that's when the link was in the footer. So I think at this point, it's really too early to tell. But just like with any sort of referral links, the more prominent it is, the higher return you will get. We have guidance on the GitHub repo and the Cross Project Council, as well as it's in our contract. The version support, at least, links should be in the top third of your website. And whether that's an intermediate page or another page, but somewhere from the project site needs to link back to the never-ending support end-of-life offering from Hero Devs. Yeah, Joy, like I said, I don't know if I got completely all your questions.
I think yes.
Mm.
And I think another question was like the idea of like the button linking directly to HeroDev, was that just like more of a kind of a guess from our side that this would increase the traffic? Because we have other ideas currently popping up, like, adding a link to documentation where people are probably more likely to actually, who are on end-of-life versions are actually likely to see those links or pay attention to. So I'm just wondering whether
Yeah.
like that style button is specifically like in the contract or is just like an idea that we have that it would do something.
It's in the contract and it's in like when I have 4 bullet points on the eligibility, it's on GitHub, it's in my keynotes, it's in everything. Linking from the project to Hero Devs is a core part of that program.
I think my question would be specifically like whether it's like that specific style button because, for example, Vue.js that we were trying to follow with, they have a button. It's like button to a project page and then the project page link to Hero Devs. And then you kind of just promote the project page about end of life releases instead of like, button on the homepage. I was wondering about that specific setup.
Yeah, I think
I think I could
I think that
answer
we
this
all
question.
I think that we all want to implement, the program in the spirit of the agreement. I think Hero Devs could do this without a link, just like there's many companies across the world that offer support for Node. So, this revenue share, I think, is a very creative way to support sustainability. Hero Devs also announced a $20 million investment for maintainers on Monday. So, just like with our other partners, I think it's a collaboration. They're all about community, so are we. I think we just need to figure out how we can implement it in the spirit of the agreement, in a way that works for the community. And again, how much revenue you all want to bring in as a project. Do you mind, can we jump to Claudio, or do you have another follow-up, Joey?
Oh, I think I'm probably not really asking my question clearly. I was more like wondering whether that specific like button direct link is like in the contract or whether that's just something that we on the projects. I think that this is like the idea that we have that in the spirit of because it's like spirit
It's a
and
direct link. It's a direct link. Yes.
I do see that Claudio has his hand
Your
up.
hand. Mhm.
Yeah, I also kind of wanted to reply to Joey in another perspective. So there were a few thoughts and considerations that were put into the place by myself also when implementing the button. First, we were comparing other partners that also all have contracts with Hero Devs, like Vue, Bootstrap, and other partners. As Vue has a dedicated page internally where they explain the program and direct to Hero Devs. Bootstrap has, for example, a direct link that goes directly to their ESP program. At the time, we thought, wow, we can add a direct link and see how it performs. If there will be, it's an experimentation, right? How we designed the button was also very important because at the same time, we didn't want to make it the wording in a way that does not make sense. So there were a lot of things that were put into consideration. There were a few iterations, on GMs and or design channels within Slack, where we iterated on the button, on the phrasing, on the CTA, and etc. And then we put live. So just replying to the specifics of the button and the link of the button and etc. And due to the urgency that we needed to put this as live as soon as possible, we put it out as it is, knowing that there will be definitely iterations to be done, be it with footprint nodes or maybe also adopting a dedicated page for this with better wording, etc., that maybe doesn't go direct to the third party. it really depends on how the community reacts and how much, we get out of this immediately, now, if there's one thing that I think maybe we could have done is made an announcement on socials as soon as we made the change live, so that people would not necessarily just feel that came out of nowhere. But a bunch of different things happened, unfortunately, in the same timing, and we are in the situation that we are right now. Yeah.
Toby? Thank you, Claudia.
Yeah, hi folks. Toby, I'm vice chair of the CPC, and I'm one of the CPC board members. And we had a long discussion in the CPC yesterday, I think it was, about this, and I thought it would be useful for me to better understand this whole thing, and sort of come in and talk about it with you. So just like a quick thing that I think is important, and Robin mentioned this, but this program and our ability, the ability for the foundation to get funds outside of just membership revenue, given sort of like how the world is moving these days, is something that's just like really important. And I think that these experimentation are like really at the forefront of what's happening. I mean, I've said that to Robin on multiple occasions, but I've also talked about it in the was the Europe Commission that's working on attestation programs for open source, that as an example of like a forward-thinking program. So I think there's like real value in trying to make this thing work. I had some really more concrete questions, which is why I raised my hand up. And one of the questions that Joey was one of the things that Joey, I heard you talk about, is essentially sort of like a shortened feedback loop in terms of like what you try and like have a sense of like the impact it has. And I think that's like something that is critical, right? Like the idea here is if Node wants to buy in and opt in into this program, that to make it as successful as possible, i.e., get as much traffic as possible to that partner, was essentially the least possible amount of real estate on your pages, right? You want to figure out like what's the best link in the right place in the spirit of the agreement, absolutely, obviously. The closer you're able to work with hero devs in that particular example, the better. And so I'm wondering sort of like two things. A, what exactly could we do to improve that feedback loop, get like better data from hero devs to the team that's working on this? And B, like what capacities do you have to do A/B testing and to test like different options? So I think those two things would be like from a implementation aspect, like interesting to figure out and improve. And then lastly, I think there's clearly a communication challenge around this, and something that needs to be discussed in the grand scheme of things, right? Which is, it's either something that the TSC and the project is comfortable with and wants to buy in, and then figure out a way of like how to do this properly, or it's something that, and that's also understandable, right? That like the community feels is against its values. And in that case, like, this sort of like needs to be clear and spelled out. So I feel it's kind of like these two aspects that both the technical and sort of like the communication one that I'm essentially here to like have a conversation about.
I think
Thanks.
Claudio had his hand up next.
Yep. Just want to quickly shout that on the website team, we are considering already A/B testing systems and also analytical systems. We in the exploratory phase because we want to implement something that is fully anonymized and that does not interfere with essential tracking, so that we don't need to add cookie banners or things like that, or be careful with GDPR or other considerations that we just don't have the resources to constantly need to verify if we are abiding them. HubSpot, my job is pretty much maintaining the experimentation and tracking platform on HubSpot. So those are topics I'm very familiar with. And I do believe that, yes, if we actually have tracking on how often people actually interact with the button and how confusing the button is, or how much frustration is generating. And I was A/B testing the variations of set button. We can definitely get valuable data with this. It's just we need to be very mindful that we are all volunteers and we have very limited amount of time to actually monitor such data and all those things. So there needs to be both expectations and reasoning here, because the website team operates as the whole project with a very limited set of volunteers that it's just yeah.
I think Chenzong had his hand up next.
Yeah, I think I have a question about the implementation of the ESP program. To be clear, it's totally about the how we implement the website linking to the HeroDev website. So from Robin's slides, I found that the term saying that the program should not be exclusive, so it's open to other vendors as well. So, but from the current experiments, I found that the implementation seems to the community that the program is exclusive because it links directly to HeroDev. So that's the question I have, that if the current implementation in some way that does not obey to our spirits of the program. So I think that's also the controversial part of the discussion in the GitHub thread and in today's meeting as well.
That's really good insight. Thank you.
Okay,
If I may on this topic, I'm sorry,
no,
I'm
no,
on the
you can
phone.
go ahead
So
if you want to respond before I go.
no, my understanding is right now there's only one partner,
Yes.
and so the distinction between inclusive and exclusive here is theoretical, right? Because right now there's just one partner.
Yeah, it is theoretical, but it may be interpreted by people in different sentiments.
Absolutely. No, and I mean that's an absolutely fair point. Absolutely.
Okay, I think I was next. I mean, I think what I hear, I don't hear anybody arguing against the program or that there's value there or that the TSC wants to figure out how to make it the most successful. I think where the challenge is some people have questions about the implementation, and some of the responses, at least in my opinion, seem to shut down discussion of of how it's implemented, because it's like, oh, this is in the contract, and it's like that then people get frustrated because they can't help to figure out, like, okay, what is the best way, or get convinced that that link is the best way. So I think that for me, the best discussion is around, let's bring everybody to a consensus as to what is the best way to achieve the goal versus what do we have to do or what do we not have to do, right? Like, I know, Claudio, you mentioned we've done some experimentation. I think everybody can get on board with the let's experiment and figure out what's going on, but I think focusing more on, like, hey, let's all get to the common understanding of what we think is the right answer versus, no, we have to stick with what we've got, or no, you can't do that. Like, let's figure out what the best world is. And I bet you, if we come up with the right answer, Hero Devs and the other partners are going to agree, right? Because, like, it's most likely to be the most effective. Joy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think I was still trying to formulate my question in a more I don't know whether it's too technical, but like in a more concrete way. So is the contract requiring that we have? So as far as I understand, Robin was saying that we need to have for example, a HTML A tag with href pointing to the HeroDev website. Is that like the only requirement? And whether that link needs to be in the homepage as opposed to any other part in the domain where we find to be maximizing the traffic. And also, like, are there any requirements about, you have A tag, there's something surrounding the A tag. Like, so like, is there any requirement about the specific style of the A tag, like things surrounding A tag? Because my understanding so far is that there needs to be this A tag, but there is no requirement about, like, we have our autonomy regarding whether that needs to be surrounded by something like styled in a certain way, or where we should put it, or in a different page on the website, that kind of thing.
I see Toby has their hand up, but I did post the documentation that we put in the CPC repo under project resources, and it outlines the requirements and best practices based on the contract that we signed with Hero Devs. I will mention as we do these experiments, they are happy to join any and all meetings to help work with the community on what that implementation looks like.
Oh, sorry. So, can I confirm that that means if we implement something similar to Vue.js, because that was listed as an explicit best practice in the document. So if we implement something similar to what Vue has, that's still considered compliant to the contract, even though like that's the bare minimum. Like we can experiment, but at least having something similar to what Vue.js does is already kind of fulfilling the contract.
I need to double check what Vue did compared to some of the other examples they gave. But again, on the implementation, I just recommend that we, work that out in a website meeting, perhaps. Again, and I think what I heard in the meeting last week where the decision was made and the team decided to work uh, on the direct call to action with the pill is one, there's still a shockingly high number of people downloading old versions of Node for one. So there was a sense of urgency, and two, that the project wanted to maximize its opportunity to revenue to support some additional infrastructure challenges. So that's why this sort of first experiment was on the homepage like that. Toby?
Yeah, I'm wondering if part of the problem that we have here is not enough communication between Hero Devs and the folks implementing this on the Node website. I'm not sure how much communication there is between the two, and how much Hero Devs is willing to put resources into figuring this out. But it seems, and again, I um, skimmed over the contract terms yesterday evening on my phone, so I don't have them all in my head, right? But I think that beyond the specifics of the agreement, I think everyone is aligned on the same outcomes, right? Which is essentially the more revenue there is for partners, the more revenue there is for the project, right? And so I believe that if y'all can work hand in hand in order to maximize this, that's what is the spirit of the contract, right? If like the contract says, I don't know, like it has to be 8 pixels by like 25, and it turns out that like 32 by 16 is kind of like looks the same but gives like completely different results for whatever reason, then it's quite obvious that like everyone will be happy both like on the Node side and on the Hero Dev side to pick the second option. And so I would recommend, and I think that also goes in the spirit of what you were asking for, Joey, at the beginning, of like tighter feedback. And it might be that it's challenging to get data, but it might be that instead of actually getting data, you can get a more collaborative effort going on, and as a result, get to a solution that is known to work better, and that also meets sort of like your community requirements around not feeling like you're going all in on a vendor or having this weird contract that like from an outside perspective might feel like not what you want. So if that's something that could be set up, I think there would be a lot of value for this.
Just to question Toby, what can be set up is like a direct, like maybe Slack channel between Hero Devs and Node, just to have direct communication, something like that.
I don't know. I'm not privy to the relationship between Hero Devs and the foundation.
Yeah, we
I don't know
do.
how much resources that they have to do this. I know that they've offered to help, and when their CEO went to talk to us, and when this was discussed in early meetings prior to the announcement, I I expect that they want this to be successful as much as you all do. And so I don't know what specific, implementation of that, improved communication would look like. And I think that's for the foundation to help you figure out. But I definitely think that something like this would be useful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
just
they've been a great partner. We do meet weekly with them, but they've also, meet with the projects. They came to the website meeting last week. I'm sure they would make that a regular thing. For some of our small projects who needed even extra help, they actually had their web developers help them make updates on their website. So they're a really good partner.
Yeah, I
Cloud?
was just going to suggest on that matter, because for many of the partners we have direct like Slack federated channels, like for example with Cloudflare, with Sentry, and other folks, even small businesses like for example Orama, which they just provide for us the search system that we have on the website. But what I actually wanted, why I raised the hand was to address, for example, the bullet point list that Robin shared, just to clarify what we already have on the website as of today. So referral links, we already have that on the blog post. We also added on the homepage for meantime, which is that URL that goes for Hero Devs. We also, if we add a dedicated ESP page, we already have a release page with previous releases where there's a small section for the ESP, but we believe that this is not enough visibility for the ESP program as a whole. So that's why we might want to add a dedicated page for that. On the downloads and releases pages, in every page it has an option talking about one specific node version. If it's EOL, there are already banners saying this is end of life. Please visit this page to understand what are your options. We're thinking making the banner even bigger and more alerting, and add more phrasing why downloading and using a bad, an EOL version does not make sense. We could even have some documentation on upgrade paths. Some of the users on the interwebs that I've communicated before, they fear that by upgrading with Node, they're breaking things. And a lot of the scenarios, that's not true. And so another thing that we are also doing with the doc redesign is that with the new documentation pages, we will also have EOL banner on the top of all the EOL versions on the docs that will tell, hey, this version is end of life. We'll of course only work for any version coming after the new system is, released, because unfortunately the way how API docs work with Node is that once it's released, it's set in stone, and we cannot change. Only if we make manual uploads directly to the Cloudflare bucket or wherever where the file is, and it just not reliable. But that is future plans. But there are a bunch of plans that we have, there are a bunch of things that we have. There's discussion happening on the website channel and other meetings. If you are interested in taking part of the conversation, if you feel that your participation is needed, all public. This is all doable. We don't want to do things and do anything behind behind the carpet.
I think I'll let Joey go, but I just after that, I think maybe we want to, like, we're 3/4 through the meeting. I think there might have been a few specific things that we want the DSC to think about or be aware of. Like there's some issues to revert things, and like it might be worth somebody going through those just so that like those specific points, if one part of it, the goal was to get more specific feedback on those, that might be useful. So, okay, Joey, go ahead.
So got distracted by Claudio's comments in the chat. Is there any decision that the TSC needs to? I think because previously it was blocked on the ground that we need to get the TSC and people from the foundation to confirm that. Wait, I need to see the exact block. That this was, having the enough. I think James already removed this block, but let me just double check.
Yeah, there are three different blocks actually right now. There's one -1 from Agiz regarding on the implementation of it. There's one -1 from James on the revert of the implementation. And there's one -1 from James on updating the link to actually go to the blog post. Since we don't have a dedicated page at the moment, it was the closest that we have. So I'm not sure which block we want to. What is the decision-making process that needs to be done right now? Well, because we're stuck. because no other PR review open will actually be allowed. I'm pretty much sure that people will block no matter whatever change I try to push, and I need to make changes. So I would really appreciate if the TSC can decide within themselves, can I, do my job of keep the development of the website ongoing, or, sorry if I'm being harsh. It's just that for me, I'm in a position that I can't do anything about this, no matter what, and I need a decision to be done.
Yeah, I think we don't exactly have quorum here. But so far it seems there's no objection of that. The changing of the link to the blog post. There's no objection from the prevents it from landing. So it seems probably ready into, like, I don't know the exact requirement about website review guidelines, but these things are already enough.
Just to clarify, I cannot dismiss a review from someone. I mean, I can, technically speaking, as an admin of the repository, but I would appreciate if either someone that is representing the TSC comments there, I'm allowed to dismiss the reviews, etc. I do not want to create troubles here. I don't want to bypass people. If we don't have quorum, I'm not sure what it means.
I think, like, if we don't, like, if we make a proposal that, if everybody here is okay with us saying, well, like, we prefer to link to the blog, we can send an email to the rest of the TSC saying, like, hey, the people who were there, this is what their preference was. And if you object, please object within the next few days. And that's way we can make sure that, like, the rest of the TSC weighs in terms of consensus or blocking. So, but we would need to, and I see Matteo has his hand up, so maybe I'd let Matteo speak, but, like, that would be one path, is to say, like, well, everybody here, yeah, let's link to the blog. We'll then, send an email to make sure that none of the other TSC members object, and that's how we gain consensus. Or we could propose something else, but that's the path. Matteo, go ahead.
Okay. In order to move into the blog, okay, I would recommend we wait for that change to the end of the week, so we can have a full week of data to understand how much traffic we are going to drive to Eurorefs, so that we can make an informed decision, and then try to redirect to the blog so we have that data for that second week, so that we can, compare, see the difference, and see how things are going to progress or regress, okay, and whatever. Because again, all of this is to maximize the results, and also keep us a certain kind of image of the project. But frankly, my understanding is that we need this program to be as successful as possible, and then if not, well, and then keep that thing up for at least 1 week. We give us that data and that information, okay, and then we can try something else, as said before, okay. But also, this is the first question. The second bit is I want to verify with Robin and Toby if linking to that web page is okay instead. Okay.
Yeah, if not, Robin, we can also make a dedicated page for the ESP program. Just one thing that I wanted to mention, Matteo, is that as much as I think that having a whole week would make sense, unfortunately, the reality is that major blocking lists that run, there are many browsers that run natively with if, there are many DNS services that run with if, have blocked that button. Even on my computer, I cannot see the button anymore. So I'm not. I do believe that to a certain degree, the traffic to that button will be affected, just because right now blockers are removing that button, so people don't even know the button exists. We could make a tweak to change the button a little bit, even maybe a redirect URL instead of hero devs. Just put a, I don't know, like URL shortener if you want to kind of force that, but then someone can just update it easily and just also block the shortened URL.
Why are they, like, I'm just trying to understand, like, so somehow the services that mirror content and serve it are removing, like, why would they do that?
Yeah, 3 days ago, someone PR'd that link into an ad blocker.
EasyList.
Yeah,
It's EasyList
So,
is.
okay.
So
Okay,
just for reference,
now I understand, but I was wondering
Yeah.
how that would
And
happen, right?
based on the research I've read, what, 30% of internet users use ad blockers. So you still have 2/3 of folks who do see it.
Yeah, there's also another interesting thing is that besides of the people that like intentionally use EasyList, there are a lot of DNS services like the ones from Cloudflare, like 1.1.101, and many other DNS services that also use EasyList under the hood. So there might be even more traffic. The code also just updated the link to be a redirect, like node.js.org/hero devs to just redirect to hero devs. But again, like anyone can open a PR on EasyList and just get it merged. I don't know.
That does speak to how effective like a direct link, like maybe would they do the same thing for the indirect link? I don't know. Anyway, I'd still think that like, okay, if that's the reality, maybe getting like Matteo suggested a week of data and then doing a comparison still is because like I think the idea here is like we're trying to make a trade-off decision, right? Like ideally,
right. No, yeah,
we
I
like
think
to
we
do
can leave
something.
it.
Yeah.
I think we can leave it. I'm just giving that information that this happened. And on the PR, they described because it was a third-party direct link without any extra information. Maybe if we even add a footnote and then we try to go to EasyList and say, hey, now we added a footnote, why this link is there, they could reverse the merge. But I do feel that it was done in a fast tracking like approach because of community feeling. And I'm open for suggestions, and if even we can find ways to, communicate with the maintainers easily is to, I don't know, can you please remove that or anything? Yeah, it's
What has
tough.
his hand up next?
I wanted to effectively mention and just, I wanted to echo what Claudio brought up about the community, about the community effect on any week's worth of tracking data. The unfortunate reality is that this has been splattered all over X and all over Twitter and all over the other channels in some very unfortunate light. So we should take a week's worth of data with a big grain of salt when it comes to the performance of the link. If we're gonna get data for the click-through rate and the sign-up rate and whatever from HeroDevs, that is already skewed right at this point, and there is no reverting that. There is no going back.
Now, is that skewed because there was lots of publicity, or skewed like plus or minus is what you're thinking, or we're just not going to know?
Right, minus 100% the minus.
Okay.
The reception of this and how this came out, because it wasn't developed in a vacuum, and or rather it was, and then it got unfortunately flagged by I don't know whom. People didn't react to it very kindly.
I guess that is a good point. I just don't know, like in terms of moving forward and figuring out what works the best. Like the idea of getting some data, like maybe the data is still so good that it says, and like you compare it to the indirect link and it's like, okay, well, it was in bad situation, but it still did better. Then that would be something that might be convincing, right? Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
But yeah, I take your point that just because we switch it and it makes no difference doesn't mean that a better direct link might not do better.
I think if the data like, I'm not sure what kind of data that we're trying to see, but if we're thinking about link clicks, we're definitely going to see like a jump because people might just click into it out of curiosity. But whether that affect the eventual conversion rate for Eurodev is kind of it's like something we do not know unless we monitor it in the long term. Because, like for example, if it's being blocked by ad blockers, which is also affecting other links, I don't know whether it affects the link in the blog post even. But if that's the eventual effect, we might see like an eventual drop in the conversion rate because people are just not seeing it. So the first week of data is more like you're going to see a jump because people are blocking it. People are clicking into it out of curiosity. But if you put it in a 1 year span, it might actually go down because of block.
I see Matteo has his hand up.
Two things. The first, I would note, and I would recommend all TSC members to read up the leadership guidelines for public communication, so that these kind of incidents do not happen again. Okay, because those hurt the projects. So please read them up. If you are not comfortable with what's written in those, please reach out and let's discuss them. If you have questions and so on and so forth, there are a few private channels where this question can be arranged and asked before a public outburst. So having said that, okay, I think I have a few things that left over to say. The first one, I think the styling and where it's exactly the form, if it's a button, if it's just some text and so on and so forth, can be iterated on and so on and so forth. The second one, I have literally, I'm not 100% sure that the type of people that link is put there for are using AD blockers. Okay, we are looking at people higher up in the management chain, people that can open up and see those things. Okay, people work at companies, typically company laptops. I have not seen many company laptops with AD blockers installed, and also, genetic feeling about AD blockers in general is they hurt creators massively, okay, and they're hurting us, okay. There was a big tweet chain a few weeks ago from a very popular technical influencer that showed that there was a thing to skip ads on YouTube, and they were skipping automatically ads on YouTube, and he was complaining that that was hurting massively his ability to do videos. So again, I'm just saying, okay, the moment you are doing of that is a question of is the audience that is watching the AD block, watching it without watching the page without the AD blocker seeing this. I think having 1 week of data is not hurting us that much. And frankly, it will say, is it skewed down? Yes, probably. But even if you put a link anywhere, like the AD blockers block all affiliate links. That's what they do. Okay. So if they block all affiliate links, if we put an affiliate links in any page, somebody can open the PR and remove that affiliate link with the AD blockers. Okay. So reality is, I don't think like if our worry is AD blockers, well, AD blockers are a reality and people are using them, and they are there to remove affiliate links. So they remove the affiliate links and kind of that's it, okay? Like they can do that for any page on our website. Hurting us, yes, okay, but they do it on purpose. Their purpose is to hurt us, okay? So I have, well, that's it, okay? So
Okay. We're down
that's
to
my
like
point.
1 minute. So Toby and Darshan, I'll let you go hopefully quickly, and then we can, like, I think we want to come out with a proposal for like, what's the next step if possible. So Toby, go ahead.
My strong recommendation would be for the TSC to empower the people who are working on the website to do so if the TSC's decision is they need that money, right? If you micromanage every sort of decision that is being made, that's going to be very challenging to get anything done, to get any kind of good quality data. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is let's make it as easy and as quickly as possible to organize closer collaboration between hero devs and the folks working on the website. And if there needs to be a discussion about the legal agreements and the specificities of this, Matteo, Joe, and I are on the board. We can have a conversation about this and try to clarify things. But again, my deep hunch is both the partners and the TSC want the same thing, which is good revenue that does not hurt the Node.js brand, right? So that should be achievable. That should be the goal. And the website team should be empowered to deliver on that goal.
Darshan, you're next.
Just a suggestion from my side. So in parallel, it might be a good idea to post about this on the Node.js socials just to keep people informed on why we're doing this. And this should soften the pushback, I believe.
Yeah, just trying to say that that was also what I wanted to raise, but I see that we are running out of time.
Right, so in terms of next steps, I mean, we've had one proposal was like, let's let it run for the week and then switch to the indirect blog post for the second week. I guess there's a suggestion to publish more explanation on the socials. I mean, I hear Toby's call to say, let the website figure it out, but I think I also hear Claudio's ask for like, there's a bunch of blocking things. So like some direction from the TSC to help block that is probably needed.
I think even so that the PR got like its blocks removed. I'm still not sure if we actually want to merge a PR now or wait for a week or what we want to do. To be honest, I'm fine with anything. I'm here to support you all. I'm just giving in, my takes on this, and in the end of the day, what the TSC thinks in this matter that is more important. It is what also aligns with my wishes. We can wait for 1 week and in the meantime develop the new ESP page, or we can just merge this so that we have the button at all because we don't have the button in those ad blocker scenarios, or maybe they don't matter. Can be also decided async. I don't know. Like
Sort of
collaboration, yeah.
The middle, I mean, I don't know if this is a middle or not, but like the proposal to say, let's wait a week, get the week of data, then switch to the indirect page. Is that something that everybody here would be okay with?
Someone needs to block the PR right now because I have the feeling that anyone is going to merge a PR at any time because it passes out the collaboration guidelines. And there are people on the website team that are not in this meeting and they could just hit that button.
Sure. So like, that's my first question. Does anybody have any objection to us that being our, like, for today's path? And then we can put a comment on the issue saying, please don't land. This is the plan. We're making sure we have consensus with the rest of the TSC. I don't hear anybody objecting.
Well, what is the plan?
It would be
to create a new page, or
we'll leave like there's already an issue open to say like, let's change the link from the button to the blog post. So the plan, I think, would be wait until a week has elapsed so that we get a week of data on the button with the direct link, then land that PR and get a week of data. And then like after that, we could like have a PR which says, well, okay, let's try something else, if maybe a new page which is more specific.
that seems fine, but also as I said before, like the data in the first week is probably like curiosity clicks. So
we could choose to say, well, let's leave it for another week, or like
I guess we should see like if anything, the useful data might be like what happens before and after the EasyList pull request has been merged. Like that would be a useful data instead of like absolute clicks. That will probably just be like people just trying to find out what what this button is.
I think either way we'd have the data. And I see Roy has his hand up.
Just like to voice that my preference would be to just land it right now, but I don't mind if you want to wait for a week. But I agree with Claudio. If anyone has strong feelings about waiting a week or the rest of this week, just leave a block there. It's going to be easier to manage, right? Like just leave a block. Oh, let's wait until the weekend, until Monday, right?
So for what I hear, immediate action is just let's wait for a couple more days because it doesn't hurt. Meantime, are we all on board that we want to have a dedicated ESP page? Is this something we want? Because then I will need to also have the foundation in, because you need the marketing people in, we need someone to write a page to ensure that it's also legally binding, it has all the required information, and that can take time, and there's design, structure, content. So, and time invested into this. So is this a more long-term solution we want? Because honestly speaking, I don't want to waste anyone's time in making a temporary ESP page that then people are not happy again about this. We don't need to decide this now, but if anyone wants to comment this in a Slack thread or an issue somewhere, we can start a conversation there. It just yeah.
I wonder if there's a way to have something actionable. So I have a motion, I guess, even though we don't have quorum. Is that I'll pose a so first we merge the podcast after this is open for a week. And then we collect the data and we work on a dedicated page for this, similar to what Vue has. And we can think about what else we can do on the website to make it more visible, like implementing the in the documentation, analyze documentations or whatever, or implementing a redirect if the link is blocked everywhere. And then the third point is trying to draft something that will be able to post on social media to explain about the whole program, about the whole button kind of thing. We'll probably need to think about what to do, but those are the three things that I propose that we do. I'm trying to see if we have any comments, any objections on the meeting. If not, we'll bring it to the issue, bring it to the progress. If there's no objections, we'll just implement a plan.
Yeah, and I think we just if everybody agrees here, we'll just send an email to the rest of the TSC just to say hey, this is the plan. If you have any objections or concerns, let us know. And then if not, we'll assume consensus, right? I don't know, when would the 1 week date be? Because that probably gives us a good
Sunday.
Okay. So we can basically say to give the rest of the TSC members okay, sometime before that, object, or that's the plan going forward.
Correct. Next Monday.
Yeah. Toby has his hand up.
Yeah, I still think you all should prioritize working with Hero Devs here, because you're, in my opinion, going way into the implementation details without closely talking to them, and so it's not necessarily going to lead to the outcomes that you want.
So I think
the priority should be this, in my opinion.
We can just adjust Joy's proposal to say that, then working on implementation that follows the Vue approach with feedback from the Hero Devs team, right?
Sure.
That's an approach we've seen in other projects use, so it's a starting point. And then if we incorporate feedback from the foundation and Hero Devs in that process, hopefully we're covering the concern there, right?
That works for me.
Okay. Okay, well, we're well over, so I think unless there's anybody else who has something that we need to add, we should close out for today. And thanks for everybody's time and active discussion.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Bye, folks.